All right, hi everyone. So this week's discussion is on leadership crisis. So during a crisis, followers will turn to leaders for an answer. A crisis will arise without any prior alert, so hence the organizations do have to prepare for anything. The text states that leaders initiate action, serve as spokespeople, engage in vigilant decision making, and connect to core values. So training your leader to be ready for these situations is going to be the first step. Because if you're coming into a crisis unprepared, then all of the weight of what's going to happen is just going to pile up on you, and then it's just going to cause one crisis after the other. It's like the same with our writing assignment, where like Penn State didn't know how to handle the crisis of the coach, and they basically tried covering it all up. And that's something that I learned is that like the public eye knows when you're lying, and they do appreciate the honesty and admitting to the faults because it shows that leaders are people too. And I think that's a really important aspect in leadership. So by training leaders to be prepared for any situation, it will allow for greater teamwork and the opportunity to brainstorm problem solving methods and approaches. So these approaches could be anywhere between communicating to large groups of people, communicating in-house, but altogether it all ties back into communication. As a leader, one must also consider the organization's image and rebuilding it. So an important thing to consider during a crisis is to remind leaders as to why certain core values are instilled so that they can bounce back into a better place. So failure to communicate the morals and values, like I said before, it just puts the community in a really bad place. Like I surprisingly didn't even know about the Penn State issue until I read the article that was given to us from the book, and it was just shocking. And then now, like, it just puts such a negative image on the school systems and the sports systems, because I came from a high school that was like very sports oriented. I went to Mater Dei High School, and they were like all about their football, about their sports, and I saw like a lot of things happen too with the coaches, where like a lot of stuff was like swept under the rug. And a lot of times, like, it resulted in negative feelings towards these individuals because they were playing either favorites or trying to cover things up. So it's just really important that, like, during a crisis, you realize that everyone is involved regardless of who is involved directly. So by covering up like one person, you're also harming, like, for instance, with their situation, like the football team, by punishing them as well. So basically, crisis during leadership ties into effective communication skills, genuine values, and being able to own up to what was done. I think that is most important. Okay, let me mute myself.
Yes. So I strongly believe a company or an organization's character is on display with how they prepare for, how they react during and respond to the crisis, and how they respond post crisis after it's happened. And organizations play a huge role in preparation of leaders when it comes to responding to a crisis. And John F. Kennedy said, and this is from the book, leadership and learning are indispensable to one another. And so I believe that organizations play a huge role in developing leaders and helping them prepare for crisis to occur, because they are inevitable. And so being prepared is the first step. So Jay Conger and Beth Benjamin identified 3 approaches to leadership development. They are as follows: individual preparation. Historically, training programs have focused on developing the individual leader in the belief that improving the leader's effectiveness will improve the organization as a whole. Then we have socializing company vision and values. Leaders learn to transmit a group culture, and this is definitely one of the most important responsibilities of organizational leaders. Then we have strategic leadership initiative. And in this approach, participants learn how to lead change while working toward actual corporate objectives. I think we have to be aware of what types of crises can occur And that's a part of the pre-crisis stage. And we as leaders are responsible for responding to and communicating, within the company and outside the company to our consumers during a crisis and how we will resolve and respond. And when potential crises have been identified, we need to develop an action plan to cope with each type of emergency that occurs. And as we've seen from the BP crisis, how a company handles it is certainly a test of character. Companies must accept responsibility for the mistakes they make or the bad decisions they make, and then work to improve its practices moving forward. I think BP tried to shift the blame to each other for the oil rig explosion spill. And based on their actions, it seems as if they were more interested in avoiding blame and accountability. They were deflecting and helping the victims of the disaster wasn't their number one priority. And as stated in the in the lecture, BP claimed that the spill was a drop in the ocean, downplaying the severity of the situation, and they ignored the signs of malpractice. And this demonstrated how unethical the leadership team at the time was. And I believe this leads to a lack of trust from the consumer. And so ultimately, a company's character is shaped and formed during situations like the one BP had to endure, and crisis will occur. That's inevitable. But how a company prepares for them and how they respond to them is certainly the ultimate test of the company's character.
Awesome, Ryan. So I agree with everything that Ryan said about the BP. I don't personally feel like they necessarily handled it in the best approach. And when stepping back and actually analyzing the situation, I mean, in a time of crisis where we all have the potential to morph and kind of step up into a new level and do things that we've never thought possible. And that's individually or in terms of the whole organization. So for me, leaders really need to be prepared to see things for what they are. By this, I mean that strong leaders, especially in time of crisis, live on the forefront of reality for the whole organization, and they recognize the events and their significance, and they don't shy away from the consequences that they see. Leaders that are on the front line of this really need to be detailed or have detailed strategy, which so reading about the strategy approach for me specifically was like, that made the most sense to me. I'm like, oh yeah, I can totally, that's a relatable situation in my life. So leaders are able to see the big picture at the end of the day, and a leader needs to be able to see all the moving parts and understand what the cause is and what the effect is in order to handle any kind of situation. They quickly develop very detailed knowledge on any situation in order to get that strategic plan. Let's see. So these leaders utilize collaboration. Strong leaders take ownership for the problems that the organization is faced with. They understand how even long-term situations requires the input and involvement of pretty much all stakeholders. It affects everybody. They identify the individuals that work together towards the solution that most support and can live with for the better of an organization. This oftentimes results in listening to unpopular advice from other resources that normally may not have been trusted, or not trusted, but like considered. Unsuccessful leaders listen to only those who agree with them normally, and it takes courage for a leader to step aside and get feedback from different people, different perspectives on the issue in order to successfully arise from a situation. They include those individuals that normally wouldn't have been taken into consideration, but utilize closest advisors typically. So lastly, with that being said, like public leaders and leaders that are going to be successful as crisis leaders, they really need to remain calm and courageous and positive. And when I put that together. I feel like there's a sense of urgency that remains in a leader's temperament. They recognize that an organization is watching them, and they know that how they present themselves is a signal to the audience, and the audience can easily lose trust in an organization very quickly. So in terms of best solution, the strongest leader needs to be prepared to make a calculated risk. Courageous leaders are going to take calculated risks, make them undoubtedly at some point, but as long as a strong leader is able to come out and be prepared to admit their mistakes, I think that that's all that an audience looks for if an issue ever arises.
So Kate, if we can't see Katie, we can't hear her either, right?
I think you can hear me, right?
Oh no, I can hear you perfect. So like it's
Yeah.
fine. We'll like Professor, just so you know, Katie has some technical difficulties with her screen. But we can hear her perfect. And I mean, if you want to send me the written too, Katie, just in case, it's up to you.
Oh, okay. Is it my turn?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So I think, I mean, personally, the biggest thing when it comes to leadership in crisis is, like everyone said, where remaining calm is really important, but at the same time, they need to remember that all eyes are on them. So every move that they make is going to be analyzed and it's going to be criticized. And I feel like a lot of people, when that happens, they try to take a step back and do a lot of shady ideas and shady actions, trying to hide it to cover up all of the crisis that happened and kind of pretend that the crisis was never there. But I really think leaders need to take a step forward, admit they're wrong, say that they're going to try to do something to right it, and be completely transparent with either their company or the public or whatever eyes are actually on them, and try to move out of that crisis instead of hide the crisis. And I mean, even with BP and, you know, I want to say United, but I know that I said that last time, but all of the crises that are going on around the world, that really leaders are just trying to cover them up. But that's not what people that we want to look up to are supposed to do. When people want to model behavior that they want other people to follow in, like a leader would want to do, that is transparency, and that is saying, I'm sorry, we messed up, we did this big wrong, here's what we're going to do to fix it, and then actually follow through with those steps. And you know, it's accountability at the same time. And it's making sure that all of the leaders involved, not just the ones at top that people are pretty much blaming for the crisis, but then going down the ladder and seeing that there is actually a whole ladder below them, and that there's a lot of tools and a lot of resources that they can take advantage of. And I feel like if companies did that more and they actually understood that there's so much support for them, instead of just trying to sweep it under the rug and tell people that it's not as big as it is, then it would be a heck of a lot simpler. And I know no crises are simple, but I really think it would make it a lot better, especially from a leadership standpoint, because then you'd actually be able to back that leader and you can say, my leader did this and I'm so proud of them and that's why I follow them. And that's just kind of my perspective, I guess. So yeah. We're at 14 minutes, so we're right on the button.
Yay! Hey guys. So, I mean, first off, you hear the word crisis, it makes you want to think of things like ExxonMobil or like a fire or earthquake disaster, and we see those types of things around the country and the world, right? But I think the Penn State scandal kind of brought to light a whole different type of crisis. And I think like to what Katie was saying, you know, it's one thing for a company for a leader to stand up and say, you know, this is the wrong that we did and we accept responsibility and this is what we're going to do to fix it. But I think that a strong organization with solid leadership already has a proactive plan in place for those types of crises. And I think more credit needs to be given to those companies that you really don't hear about too much in the media, because I think that really shows that they have a proactive plan in place to where they're able to handle those types of issues internally before they hit the media and they get that media backlash. And we all know the media just likes to blow everything out of proportion and make it controversial and, you know, worth $1 to someone. So, and it goes hand in hand with public leadership. You have to have a leader that's able to step in and be able to speak calmly to what's going on, and not just say that they're going to deal with whatever issues are at hand, but actually have a plan in place and follow through and be able to show steps publicly that they're taking in order to alleviate those issues. Some little bit proprietary information for my plant specifically. You guys know I work for Starbucks, so the Penn State scandal was kind of interesting because about 3 months ago, there was I'll say young man, he's my age, worked with him every day, saw him every day, didn't think anything of it. And there was like 3 days he wasn't at work, and then all of a sudden, like for 2 days, there was buzz about he got arrested for lewdness with a child under the age of 14. And he was in like Facebook media, he was arrested for it, you know, mug shot and everything. And everyone was like, holy crap, right? I mean, Starbucks wasted no time to sever ties. Like I said, it buzzed for about 2 days, and then it was like the guy never even worked there. It was like no existence of him remained. It was kind of crazy, but I think for issues like that, you know, large corporations want absolutely nothing to do with that, and they will do what it takes internally to keep that type of thing from reaching a broader scale, because they don't want it's brand recognition, right? You don't want your brand associated with that type of problem. Like Penn State should have really taken into consideration how they appear to their stakeholders and you know, prospective students and alumni and all that type of stuff. So it really takes an all-around approach and a real calm leader to be able to really look at everything that's going on, evaluate it, and trust but verify, right? You have to trust that you want to think of the best intentions for the people that work for you and under you and around you, but also if there's allegations, you should be taking it seriously and investigating it thoroughly just to make sure there isn't a problem. So I know we're, again, running a little long, so I'll stop.
All right, guys, awesome. I loved everyone's ideas on this topic. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the live video. Thank you so much for everyone participating. And then Yvonne, I'm gonna get her written portion and submit it. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys. Have a good day.
It's summer. This is the last time we'll see each other.
I know.